McPherson's here, our finance director, to review the library warrant. Then there'll be a town meeting warrant review, and then consideration of an appointment to the Public Safety Committee of Michael Goldstein, and then a discussion regarding the villages at Sherborn, 84 Coolidge Street, regarding a letter that was sent to us by Mass Housing Partnership, consideration of potential for a tie-in to the native water supply, the acceptance of a gift from Middlesex Savings Bank. There'll be no town administrator report, and then approval of some Board of Selectmen minutes and other selectmen items that the selectmen may report on,
Okay.
and then set the next meeting date.
Do we have a motion to approve the agenda or amend it?
So moved.
Sean's moved to approve it. You have an amendment, Paul?
Yeah, just a friendly amendment to approve the agenda as she amended it. She changed some of the wording and said that some items were to be dropped. Like there's no town administrator report.
Right.
No public comment because no one signed up. So I'd say as amended by Diane. She also changed the discussion of the town election warrant to the town special town meeting warrant.
It's the town meeting warrant.
There's both, yeah, there's both. So it's a town meeting warrant. We already voted the election warrant.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to amend to take out public comment, take out town administrator report. That's Paul's amendment. Is that,
Yep.
Which is already,
okay? So we have a second on that?
Second.
Paul's amendment, and then second Sean's motion. All in favor of the agenda. We're going to get something done. Okay, good. When we were here last time, we set a date for a special town election. I think it was pretty clear to everybody up here that was an election for the open Mark Brandon Selectmen's seat. There was a question the next day about whether we had actually scheduled an election for a particular seat, so we're going to ratify our election from the last time. So I moved to ratify our decision to have the open Mark Brandon Selectman seat be the subject of the election, special election.
Second.
All right, so moved and seconded. Diane, what's the date of that election again, just so people remember?
Oh, boy.
They can make their vacation plans accordingly. January 9th.
January
There we
9th, right.
go. Okay, very, thank you.
Is that the motion you need? Is that the motion the town clerk is looking for?
I appreciate you completing the.
Well, this way there's no technical issue if you know, I don't want you to have a technical issue with it.
Something required by state statute.
Yeah, so, all right, so we're ratifying that to be clear that it's the open Mark Brandon Selectman seat on January 9th. All in favor? Okay, good, we did that. Consideration of financial matters, Sharon, library warrant review?
Okay, I gave everybody a copy of this,
Yep.
and just a couple things. The last warrant we had was for $261,567.23. Invoices were issued to Five Star for $241,000, a small invoice to Community News, and $16,141.80 to Design Techniques. The only thing I want to point out is that at this point in time, we have exhausted all of the grant money that we've received. We still have a receivable of $1.566 million. But in speaking with Elizabeth, that will probably come later in the spring. So at this point, all of our expenses are being funded by the donations. Currently, there's a balance of $2,690,000. And we do have, I have $1,190,750 to be borrowed. But actually, I need to change that because and I went back and looked. The $190,750 was actually free cash. So we can use that money as
And that was
well.
appropriated when?
That was at the last town meeting in April of this year, so. But that's basically it, so, and I send this report out every time we have a warrant.
Okay.
My question on this, when I read this, I read it 3 or 4 times.
Really?
You were slow on reading
that's
material?
because we had 4 copies.
The same thing, but I'm trying to figure out the differences. But at the burn rate that we're at, do you project that we have enough money to complete the project?
Sean,
You
do you
looking
have
at me?
any comments on that?
Well, I would, it's hard to talk about burn rate in a project that came it's gone through the hurdles that they've had to go through the past few months. So the burn rate isn't really indicative of where they're at. Because you front load your design and then you get into construction and some of the long lead time items that should have been ordered have been held up by design, changes in design.
I mean, I haven't heard any discussion of running over.
I'm not gonna comment on that. I'm just gonna comment on burn rates
Okay,
for the past few months.
okay.
Anybody else with comments or questions on this? This is more of an educational process.
Yeah.
We're trying to get a handle on the library project and the expenditures, and Sean's been doing a great job of following what's going on and, being more involved in the process maybe than we had been previously. The library's got the library trustees have a lot of things they're doing with this project. There's tons of moving parts, and we just want to keep track of it because it's town money.
Yeah. Yeah, so I will provide this every
Perfect.
week, every other
And
week.
this does not require a vote.
Nope.
No, no.
This is
no,
an informational
Just
item.
informational, yep.
Yep. Okay, we do have a bunch of warrants, though. We can do that, I guess, during selectmen items. But we do have a number of,
Well, why don't we get rid of them?
Yeah,
all?
those are just to be signed.
these
by-
are just to be
yeah,
signed? Okay,
yeah,
great.
those are,
All right, so there's no full warrant?
No.
David's still able to do those?
Taken care of today.
yep.
Perfect, okay, great, thanks. So next is the town meeting warrant, review the town meeting warrant. Do we have a draft of that, Diane? It's in here, right?
Just copies of what was submitted.
Yep.
You'll see the proposed ones from the zoning board. They have bringing forward 2 articles.
Yeah,
And-
Planning board.
yeah, planning board,
Planning
Planning
board.
board, that's-
Yeah.
yeah.
zoning articles.
Zoning articles, right.
Yeah.
All right, so we've got we've
And
got
then something
proposed
from
town
the
meeting
fire
articles.
chief, and then the citizens petition.
Okay. Okay, and then we need to consider if there's anything we want to add to the warrant besides, well, first we want to consider if we want to put the zoning article and the chief's article on, the citizens petition is automatically on, and then if there's anything else we wanted to add to that. So that's the subject for discussion.
Well, but preliminarily, could I make a motion to put on the warrant for the special town meeting what's been designated as Article A, which is an article submitted by the planning board to amend section 5.6.5 of the zoning bylaw.
Okay,
Need a second?
so it's been moved and seconded? Yep. For discussion?
I had several questions for the planning board. What was the vote on this?
It was unanimous.
Unanimous. Second question is why, I know there was, in the Pulte Maple Street project, the language was unclear in the existing article, whether it had to be affordable and age-restricted. The language you have has 3 different categories, and it says that the projects have to be one of the following categories. Does that imply, or should it say as one or more? Because conceivably, you could have a project that meets 2 or 3 of these elements.
Well, the way it's set up is a strictly affordable project needs to have 25% affordable, whereas an age-restricted project only needs 10% affordable. Or, then the third option is just age-restricted with no affordable. So it's tough to combine any of those. I think those are 3 distinct.
But conceivably, I could put in 3 buildings, 1 of each flavor, and it's not clear to me. I would probably prefer to have that submitted as a single EA project, not 3.
You need 18 acres under this, right? You need 6 acres for each project.
Yeah, fair point.
Well, I mean, I don't know, I mean, it's a point. I don't know if it's a desirable point or not, I don't know. But the thinking here is there's been kind of a hole in this bylaw for a long time where we didn't know if you could do affordable 55 and up projects. This says, yes, you can, but you've got to pick. If you're going to do that, you've got to pick. That's your project. You're either doing a 55 and up project or an affordable 55 and up project, one or the other. Or you could abandon the 55 and up piece of it and just do a straight affordable, which is effectively like a 40B, a friendly 40B that conforms with the bylaw. You could do a friendly 40B that doesn't conform with this bylaw, but
Right, and that was a fix that was done, either last year or the year before, because previously it just said affordable, there was no percentage mentioned, so that was confusing too, so that was clarified, and now we're clarifying on age restricted as well, that, you know, it can be strictly age restricted, or you can have an affordable component. And they're all special permits, so there's, you know, discretion on the planning board to grant that special permit.
And part of the spirit of this, with the affordable age restricted, is to give builders the option of putting in age restricted units, and that would actually make the whole project more acceptable, more palatable to the town, and friendlier to the town, because it keeps the balance between the denominator of total housing units and affordable percentage.
it's interesting to me that you don't have any density provision in here, right? Is that going to be governed by septic or?
Well,
This is only part
this
of
section.
Yeah.
Oh, this is only the section
This is only this section.
being amended, okay.
It's
Right.
4 units per acre.
Right.
Elsewhere, specified elsewhere.
Yeah, I'm wondering if for town meeting, we'd be better off putting in the warrant the entire article as amended, rather than just the standalone provision, because it is a little harder to understand if people don't see the whole context.
I think so, definitely presenting this, you have to emphasize that a number of complements are not changed, including 25% open space, the density maximum of 4 units per acre based on the total property area, et cetera.
That's a great suggestion, though, Mike, because I don't think people fully understand how much this bylaw, the control is at town meeting. Planning board's initial assessment is simply whether or not there's enough information for town meeting to make a determination. If it's approved at town meeting, then you have your normal procedures, but that's a great idea.
I think having all the language in there just makes it easier to sell, and it prevents people from saying it's going to do something, and people can't look at the actual language. So that's an idea to do that. Question on the affordable, if designated affordable, a minimum 25% of the units. And I know, Gina, you said this is something we did previously, but does that include rental properties also? Is it still 25% designated? Is that the right way to phrase that? Okay, even though it's not a specific unit, they still use that formulation? Okay. So it's not intended to exclude that? Okay, all right.
Well, kudos, this is very clear.
Yes, it is very clear. And the other piece of it that you didn't mention is the distance provision is coming out. The 1 mile by public way.
Yeah, that's intended because it's really tied to the second option. Opportunity for a project that appears to be favorable to us, that is just a little bit beyond the 1 mile limit. But on the other hand, it's within 1.5 miles of even more services in the other direction of towns. It just doesn't have to be our town center. And
The 1 mile restriction is in our housing production plan, as for energy. We are going to move toward affordable housing in a sustainable manner that enables projects of all sizes and enables creative projects. So right now, the 1 mile restricts us from being able to entertain creative projects. So this is something that would affect or solicit. It's something that, regardless of what the project is, it'll be useful to have that 1 mile restriction. To really look at each site uniquely.
Well, the irony is the 1 mile restriction is actually the hindrance environmentally right now, because there's no means to build anything within a mile.
Okay, any more comments, any public comments on this? Anybody have anything they want to ask or say? We're going to vote to add this to the warrant?
As amended by your suggestion of expanding the article to include the
The
remaining
text that's not changing. Is that all right?
Say that again.
In other words, to include it in the warrant with the full text of the article, so it'll show the changes, it'll also show the other sections. Okay. All right, so that was a motion, as Paul amended it.
I'll second it.
Sean seconded. All in favor? Okay, so Diane, we're going to put that on the warrant.
And then I would move their second article, which is Article B. This is to vote to grant preliminary development plan approval for a specific parcel of land on Coolidge Street, as described in the article, again proposed by the planning board.
I'm sorry, did you move that?
Yes.
Second?
We moved in second, so we have a little discussion of this. And this has been reviewed by town council?
Some of those talking
Okay.
motions.
So because when it does say rezoning, but it really is a rezoning article in addition to preliminary development plan approval, right? It's got two components to it, and I just want to make sure that Barbara is okay that this is being advertised as a rezoning article.
With two-thirds vote required.
Two-thirds vote required.
Rezoning to EA requires an accompanying.
Right, and that's my point. This is in one article, it's not accompanying. You've combined the two, which it's logical to do because you can't have one without the other, but it also may require some explanation, and we have to remember it's a two-thirds. Is it a two-thirds to approve the project also?
Yes.
It is, okay, so then the vote is the same for both also. I'm just wondering if this should be split up, so there's an A and B, you can still vote it, but it's clear that you're doing two things, rather than, this says preliminary development plan approval for the rezoning, it doesn't actually say you're rezoning it.
Right. Which would lead him back a year later.
Right, but if I voted on this, I might not think we'd actually rezoned it at all, I might think we were just doing the preliminary development plan approval.
Well, the first sentence says, for the rezoning of land located on Coolidge Street.
Right, well, it says preliminary development plan approval for the rezoning of land to resident EA, but it doesn't actually say, and the rezoning of land to residents EA.
So why don't you change the word "for" to the word "and"?
Would that work? Because there is a fear of separating it out into two separate votes.
I don't want two separate votes, I want it to say two separate things, so that we know it's both a preliminary development plan approval and it's an approval of the rezoning.
That
Would
would,
it be clearer to put it in bullet points?
Something like that, maybe.
I think if you just change the word "for" to the word "and," you accomplish the goal that,
Well, if you want to make it
Think
even
you should just
clearer, you
change the
could
order
do,
around.
we'll vote to, 1, grant preliminary development plan approval, and 2, the rezoning.
there you go.
I mean, that makes it perfectly clear they're two different items.
I think in the presentation of this, it can be made clear that one cannot rezone to EA without a preliminary development plan. They're tied.
I think and we'll understand that, and you can explain that. I just want to make sure the words of this do, I mean, it's really intent, and we all know what the intent is, but I just want to make sure the words do what we say it's going to do. And I may just ask Barbara if she's got a suggestion on that. I know she blessed this. I don't have any problem with the concept, and we can vote this. It's just, we may want to tweak it if the planning board's willing, and we can be clearer
I
about
have
it.
another little tweak, which is to actually put a street address in for the parcel of land located on Coolidge Street. Because I think the average voter getting the call of town meeting, looking at this, would not really know what's being talked about. And yes, it says there's something on file with the town clerk, but why not be a little more specific so that people know right up front what we're
Doesn't have a street address, does it?
The only reason it's not in there is the actual EA may spill a little beyond the one parcel that we're thinking of at
I see.
84 Coolidge. It's likely to spill because of the open space requirement. It's going to take a little piece.
Careful, this is not 84 Coolidge.
On 104. It may spill onto 84, is what I'm saying.
Okay,
Well,
are
we
you-
can maybe say that.
You guys are gonna do an A&R plan or something? Yeah.
Yeah.
Will that be done before town meeting?
Probably not, because you probably wouldn't want to do it unless it passes.
Mhm.
But the plan will be done, but not probably endorsed until, well, like, even if it's endorsed, it doesn't have to be recorded, so, sure, we could do that.
You consider the, search treatment plants
That's.
Thing is, the property's not known as 104 Coolidge.
It's not known as 104?
Oh, really? No. That's only a portion of it that was added. It was Gray Road.
What is that now, Gino? Is it Residence A, all of it?
Yeah, no. Yes, it is.
It's 1 acre, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, is there anything we can do to make it more specific?
How about 104 and a portion of 84, as more fully described?
Are you describing that whole piece of property as 104? Because it's really not.
Why don't we just describe it by assessor's parcel?
Okay.
just 104. Tell people where it is. And what spillover is there?
No, that's fine.
Internal discussion here, what, spillover is there besides the subject?
The open space. There's gotta be some open space.
He's drawing,
Right.
The reason why I mentioned street address is that people can find that by driving around,
Yeah.
but by driving around, you're not going to see assessor's parcel number, map number, and parcel number. I just wanted to have people a little more informed as to where this thing is, to get some sense.
Is there a street address on the property now?
No.
So, I mean, I don't,
you can kind of figure it out by the adjacent numbers.
104 is a parcel that was subdivided off
Yeah,
of
no, I get it, I
a
get
different
it.
parcel that got,
I wonder if you're gonna wanna encourage him, even if he doesn't do the A&R to combine the two parcels, to do the A&R to carve the parcel off, because then you can describe it. Then you can describe it legally. If he cuts a sliver off the other one, even if it's still unified as a matter of title, if it's two lots for planning purposes, not a building lot, you can at least reference it at Lot B as on the plan approved, approval not required, planning board dated, whatever. That's very clear, because otherwise you're not gonna do a meets and bounds description of the second parcel, right? So, it's the clearest way to do it. You just don't want anybody ever later trying to unravel something because they say it technically wasn't voted or whatever, and we know there are gonna be people who wanna unravel this if it passes, so.
Okay.
I don't know. Okay, that's my conveyancing concern for the evening.
trying to think, there might be engineering reasons why.
Why what?
Why they don't know exactly where that's gonna happen.
There might be,
Because
there might be, but we can't vote in the abstract. We've gotta vote a specific
no, I
piece of
know, but
land.
he can't finish his site plans either.
Right, but
That's
we've
why
got
it's a
to,
preliminary.
no, I understand, but if we're gonna rezone something, we gotta rezone an entire piece of land. And this is not an overlay, right? It's a rezoning, so if you're an EA, you're doing an EA project, you can't go back and say I'm building a traditional subdivision.
The bylaw as it currently reads says that if you don't get the special permit, you can develop under the rules of what had been the
Okay.
previous zone.
So you'd have to tank the special permit and, okay. All right. So we've voted this yet, or we've just talked about it?
We
Paul's made
just
the
talked
motion.
about it.
All right, I'll second Paul's motion. All in favor? Okay, so we've got a little bit of work to do, but those are both on. Okay, next we've got, Chief Kinney has an article, right? That was the only planning board ones, right? Gino? Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. Hello, Chief.
Hello. I have a little slideshow. I think he's gonna get it up on the screen for you guys to be
Okay.
able to see.
Okay, there we go.
If you all come closer in the audience, you can see it. It's pretty clear away. So, in particular, the warrant is just trying to get a new chief's car or replace, technically it's replacing what is now the existing Service One, which is in poor condition. Heat doesn't work, air conditioning doesn't work, but the vehicle is old and I don't want to put any money into it, for what it's used for or what it's not used for currently, because, usually our officer in charge or duty officers will use it, but there's been not many people using it, if at all, because of when it was hot, it didn't have air conditioning, so they wouldn't use it, and as it gets cold, they're not going to use it because it doesn't have heat. So with that being the case, I want to basically just cycle through the vehicles. The current Car 1, which I'm using, would become the service vehicle or the vehicle for the officer in charge or duty officers, and I would look to get a different vehicle. So this is the current vehicle that you see now. As you can see, for me, I'm larger than the average bear, so this is very small. It's very tight. There's a compound effect because of me being so large. My gear is bigger and all of those things, and trying to cram my size gear and equipment into a little person's space doesn't really work that well. So, one of the things I've experienced, I've broken a few phone cases and, damaged a radio, like things like that, just getting in and out of the car. It just doesn't fit me in terms of being fully functional. So the objective would be to move to something more like this vehicle. And there's a few reasons for that. One is, commonly right now, my personnel are using their personal vehicles to do things like tow the UTV, tow the boat. When we do hose testing, to bring broken sections of hose or broken tools and transporting them to and from stations and repair and places like that with their personal vehicles. To me, that's unacceptable. It's a unacceptable risk that they're assuming, but also that the town is assuming when that equipment is placed in or towed by their personal vehicles as opposed to a fire department vehicle. Currently, the fire department has just one vehicle that can tow the different auxiliary trailers that we have, and that would be Engine 5. So with that vehicle being multifaceted already, in the event of an emergency, like we have power outages or things like that, or we get a storm that comes through and we have power outages plus a flooded basement, or which very well could happen and probably has happened in the past. That vehicle can't be in two places at one time, so it wouldn't be available to tow the UTV if we had a search or if we had to go into the Rocky Meadows. So those are the things. I'm kind of trying to get something that's a gap filler and a functional response vehicle for the fire chief, but also to handle the response piece of the job, and have the communication capability to handle the emergency management part, where I could quasi set up a small emergency operations center, on a scene, or an area command, that kind of thing. If we have, a series of storms or something come through and we get a section of town that gets heavily damaged, or a pocket of town that, we need to do damage assessments or things like that, and I'll have the capability to, establish a operations center from that point or location. The other piece of this is the current car one is underlit. It's not a stretch to say that it's unsafe. There's not enough emergency lighting on it. As a matter of fact, when you're looking at it from the side, or what would be the intersection clearing point of view, there's absolutely no light visible whatsoever. So if I was in the middle of an intersection, no one would know that I was an emergency vehicle at all. And I've encountered several times, responding back for calls and things like that, that people just don't see me or recognize that I'm an emergency vehicle until they're able to hear me, or I get right up on them. And then, they either react, one of two ways. Either they slam on their brakes or they pull to the right. And either way, it's usually a drastic or abrupt move. There's not adequate forward warning to allow them to react appropriately. So that's one of the issues too, and something that we can rectify by taking some of the existing lights off of the current service vehicle. Once we put this in place of, if this gets approved and we move forward, I would take some of the existing LED lighting off of the current service vehicle and place it on this one. There's some LED mirror lights that would effectively help with the intersection clearing, and and there's some other lights on there that we can hopefully keep and repurpose and put on this vehicle to have it more safely lit or adequately lit. And actually, that picture, that slide you're looking at, is with the lights on. So that's even from the front. That's what you're seeing or not seeing, versus the other vehicle, which obviously you're going to see. This is an example of like the command area or command module that I have now. If you'll notice, that area in the current vehicle, which is on the left, is crammed full of equipment. And, I have the little whiteboard there, which, I try to make do with, but it is less than adequate when we have an incident like we did the other day in the Rocky Meadows, where we had multiple agencies there, and I'm trying to track, as an incident commander running a unified command. I've got police, I've got CMND with us, I've got the state police, I've got Natick police. We were trying to contact Medfield. We got a lot of working things in play, and in order to track those resources and do the things appropriately, you need appropriate space and to adequately do that. And obviously, that's very tough with the way that the current chief vehicle is laid out. It doesn't really afford me the ability to do that efficiently. So on the right side is what the newer vehicle design would be like. If you see, there's a much larger whiteboard plus the little communications modules right there, and accessible. It would be easy to use. And that's one of the things that is kind of a gap filler as well. The communications capability of this vehicle would allow me to speak to everybody in town, because it has radios for all the different radio bands. And actually has a field programmable system in it as well, should we run into anything where we have a lot of mutual aid or people coming to support us. I could in essence set up a small little network and program their radios on the fly, to help us out in the event of a significant emergency, or we had to activate shelters, things like that. This is just an example of the cab. So that's the current center console on the first picture on the left side. I think that picture kind of sums it up. It's a narrow, small space, and I'm a big guy. So the vehicle that I'm trying to get, you can see the difference in the size of the communications area in the console. And the radios that are accessible there. Obviously, it just creates a lot more space to operate and do what I have to do. And that would be an example of what the new C1 vehicle would look like. And that's what I can answer any questions you may have. Again, the overall objective is just to provide something to the department it really has never had, which is a more heavy-duty style of vehicle that can tow some of the trailers and auxiliary things, but also be the response vehicle and eliminate my personnel having to use their personal vehicles and dinging up their vehicles and, exposing us to unnecessary risk with having to tow the UTV to searches and things of that nature. I mean, I appreciate it, and I think this town owes a great debt of gratitude to its fire personnel. It's amazing what they're willing to do out of the goodness of their hearts, but at the same time, there comes a time where we have to look at what does that potentially expose the town to, but also them as individuals. Yes, it's out of the goodness of their heart and the intentions are right, but if they happen to have a wreck or get hit or the trailer gets hit while it's being towed, their insurance isn't going to cover that damage because they're operating as in the auspices of an emergency vehicle, which is not covered under anybody's normal insurance. So I would definitely like to eliminate that necessity, because right now it is a necessity. We don't have a vehicle that we can use in that fashion in an effective or efficient way. So
It's great.
Got some questions.
Yeah, Paul, go ahead.
Because we're talking about a special town meeting, we need to ask you to articulate why this wouldn't be an item for the annual town meeting, which is in April. Why now for a December town meeting? Rationale, what's your thinking?
The reason for now is one, because of the service one is becoming not usable. The one that's currently there, and the fact that it doesn't have adequate heat or defrost and those kind of things, and we're coming up into our winter, or I guess our hardest hit time of the winter is January, February. So to hopefully, yeah, the goal would be to hopefully have something in place, or at least be in that direction, so that we can get that done. The other thing that I've encountered, and I waited, I talked to David about this a while ago, but I waited. I tried to assess what was feasible or what I could do with my current vehicle, and it just became apparent pretty quickly as I responded to some calls and as I began to put the equipment cache that I normally would carry in the vehicle that it doesn't meet the need. And I really don't want to put any money into service and service one. I think that'd be a waste of money. And if we can, move in a direction to, correct two things, that'd be great. Have a dependable service vehicle that's going to last another 8 to 10 years, plus, a new chief's vehicle that's going to really, on the capital plan, would be a 12 to 15 year vehicle as opposed to a 10, because of its nature of being a more robust, more heavy duty vehicle that can take more of the day-to-day pounding or response role. I think it's just a move or a direction that I would like to go, or like to see go now. Just strictly off of, I really don't want to put any money or waste any money into the current Service One vehicle. I think that just wouldn't be prudent. I think it would, for the amount of money we'd put into it to make it functional, we're probably going to get, we're probably not going to get very much out of it whenever we do go to trade it or sell it. So I'd rather just move it and get rid of it, get it out of the fleet, and not have it be something that we're pouring money into to fix or keep up.
Plus he's gonna go on IOD with, back injury, having to squirm in and out of the truck. I don't think we can afford to lose it for 6 months.
My other question was, this was gonna cost $77,000, and you indicated and you circled in your paperwork that there's a grant available, an AFG grant. How much is the grant? How likely are we to get it?
That the reason I circled that is because it requested that we look into potential for a grant. it's actually not a favorable piece of equipment for that grant. AFG will, I would get laughed at if I submitted for a chief vehicle in an AFG grant. That is the type of grant that would accommodate it, and me trying to frame it as a emergency management type vehicle / response vehicle may help, but the reality is they'll look at that as a small price tag and say, that's not a great enough need. You know, we're looking for people that are asking for $500,000 for a fire truck. You're asking for a chief vehicle, you know, and they would just look at our financials, look at the budget and say, you should be able to take care of that. That's not a request that it wouldn't make it past their computer evaluation. The reality of it is.
How do you propose?
Okay, sorry. You said you had only one more, but that's okay. That's fine. Go ahead,
Just to
please.
follow up, to
Please,
figure out
yes.
how, have you had any discussions with how you think we should pay for this? Is this like a lease or outright purchase?
Yes.
Got leasing from here.
Yeah, one of the things that I looked into and I've had some success with in previous jobs is tax exempt government lease purchases. And what it allows you to do is leave your free cash as free cash and make annual payments or semi-annual payments. And at the end of the lease term, you still own it. The most difficult thing that I found doing the tax exempt government lease purchasing is how to reconcile it in your books, because it doesn't necessarily reflect as debt. It doesn't affect your bond rating. It doesn't affect anything on the town. So the hardest thing is for finance to figure out how to reconcile it as being true debt. But other than that, it's just you make the payments, and once the payment cycle or terms of the cycle are done, it's yours.
Have you considered, is the $77,400 available as a purchase price? Because, I mean, the interest rate on the lease is just under 5%.
Yeah.
So we're paying over a 5-year period, either $8,000 or $9,000.
It's right about $8,500 is what you'd pay. It comes out to about $1,600 a year is what you're paying for the lease,
So
basically.
why don't we buy it outright? And save
You
the-
buy it.
I'm very
Go to
comfortable with that.
advisory last night?
No, I'm comfortable with buying. I just wanted to put an option on the table
Yeah.
that didn't pull away a chunk of free cash if we could avoid doing that, if, you know.
It's a cash flow issue, and you just asked the same question I was going to ask, but, you know, that lease factor is higher than we would borrow money at.
Right,
And-
exactly.
And so it doesn't look like, it looks like a good deal from a cash flow standpoint, but it doesn't look like such a good deal from a finance standpoint.
Right. I wouldn't
Yeah.
be entering into this lease if I could afford to buy it, but
Yeah.
that's obviously advisory's call more than ours. But how old is the current Service One?
The current Service One is a 2003, or I believe.
Approximate mileage on it?
Oh, gosh, I haven't looked, to be honest. I just know everybody that's used it complains to me about the air conditioning and the heat not working.
The heat doesn't work.
And you
It can't be
that
driven in the winter.
We
It has no
talked before the
defrost.
meeting, you said that the trade-in value is probably $4,000 or $5,000.
Yeah, it might not be that. I mean,
Gift.
it might
I
not
have
be
one
that.
final
It has
question
salvage value.
about the comm gear. You've got two digital radios, a mobile radio, and a multi-band router. In the past, we've had problems with compatibility of comm gear. Are we pretty comfortable that this is going to work?
Yeah, I've actually asked the questions, and one of the reasons that this vehicle has so much, just to give you a background, it's a demonstrator vehicle, so it's loaded with some bells and whistles that if I ordered it straight, I may not put in there. But the problem is, if I ordered it straight today, even with less equipment, it's going to cost more money. The reason it's been on a demo circuit for not quite a year, but one of the things in trying to negotiate back and forth with the company is, okay, use it for the demo circuit. You can use it, keep it as a demo, and then when the time comes, that means we get a discounted rate on it. There's nothing wrong with it. It's still brand new. It's only been used to show people its functionality and capabilities, and we don't have to take the price hit.
How many miles
take
on it? Driving it from Boise, Idaho to wherever they're demoing?
Yeah, I believe it's 25,000 is going to be roughly what's on it. Again, it's being an F-250, it's very. It's not really 25,000 miles isn't a lot, and if I'm not mistaken, in my discussions with the company, they'll still warranty it, or the warranties would still be in effect as if it would still be in effect as if it was new. So we would still get the benefit of I think it's 70,000 miles of warranty on top of whatever it already has on it.
Is this a vehicle that stays at the fire station? Is this a vehicle you take with you, or?
It would be a vehicle I end up taking with me, and I would say this, I don't know, I probably respond to over 80% of the calls. Anything that's beyond just a simple medical, I come to it. I just the nature of how I believe the job should be done. And if it's one of those things where I'm not available, I try to communicate that with my personnel to let them know I'm going to be completely unavailable, which is really extremely rare. I think it's happened once since I've been here, where I've been completely just unavailable to respond. I think that's one of the things. The other thing about this too that I would think would be advantageous is that I have, probably a cache of emergency gear that I have that's sitting in my garage that I can't fit in the current vehicle. That's probably $20,000 to $30,000 worth of emergency response stuff that I have that would enhance the capabilities of this department that I just can't use right now. For example, I talked with Chief Thompson about, with the search in the Rocky Narrows, if somebody was to fall over the overlook, I have everything we need in order to effect or at least get started with that rescue. Once we get personnel, everything on board, that's an area of expertise that I have as a rope rescue technician. So I have all of that stuff. But if we did have that come about, I have no way of right now besides just racing home,
Stuff it in the
stripping
car,
it,
you wouldn't be able to
and
get it
stuff.
out.
Right.
And that car wouldn't make it there.
Yeah.
That's the
Right.
We don't have an off-road vehicle.
So when-
I think his wife wants to put it back for rescue.
Yeah, so when you talked about maybe a 15-year life on this, which would be great, but I don't know that I would be expecting that because we never get those kind of
Yeah.
times out of it. But that's taking into consideration the kind of where it would get, because you
Right.
are responding to a lot of
Right.
calls. Okay.
Yeah, it would hold up better. I think on the capital replacement plan, I looked at the ambulance and the chief vehicle, for example, are 10-year, and the fire apparatus is usually 20 to 25. So, what I looked at though is that if a little Explorer lasted 10 years, then a more robust, bigger truck's going to last you at least 2 to 3 years. Hopefully 5 longer. One of the things that I do notice is that usually the general maintenance on more heavy-duty vehicles is impeccable here. So, kudos to CM&D and Warren and those guys, because, we don't have a lot of issues. And, for some of the fire apparatus we have to be as old as it is and to still be functioning as well as it does it's definitely been taken care of, because one of the biggest killers of fire apparatus is actually inactivity, not necessarily to get you run all the time. So for them to be maintained and taken care of the way they are, I would trust that we should be able to get a couple extra years or more years than expected out of that vehicle with the way the vehicles are maintained here.
Okay. That was a good presentation. It was very clear. Are we ready to take a vote to put this on the warrant? Everybody okay with this? Good. All right.
Yeah, I think we should support the chief. He identifies this need. Got to provide for the public safety.
So that's your
So I'm
motion?
gonna support. I move to put this on as Article 3.
Very good.
Second?
All right, moved and seconded.
With one caveat, the article isn't actually written.
Right, that's right.
So I guess the motion should be to
To add in article.
add in Article 3 to be written by town council, maybe?
Yeah, but written by David and Diane with town council.
So that would be the modified, amended
Okay.
motion.
All right, all in favor? Are you still seconding it?
Yeah.
Okay, all in favor? All right, great. Thank you, chief.
Thank you.
Let's see what's next. We've got citizens petition, which is going on anyway. You're welcome to address it if you want, Susan, just because there's a microphone here and there are probably 2 or 3 people watching it on television, but if you don't want to, that's fine also.
I can if you like. It's the same as what was done or put in a year ago,
Okay.
and that just didn't make the town meeting for a technicality, I guess. And it's the same warrant article, $125,000
Okay,
So there's no change.
okay.
So I move to put it on the warrant because we're required under Chapter 39, Section 10.
I would second that motion.
Yes, and I was just thinking, Paul, when you made that last motion about the fire chief article, you moved to put it on as Article 3, and I think we talked about zoning as Article 2, but we haven't really set the numbers of these articles yet, because, you know, we may want them in a different order.
Yes.
So, with that caveat, I think, you know, we vote to put this on, but we haven't decided exactly where it'll go yet.
Okay.
Is that all right?
Accept
Sure.
it as
Okay.
friendly amendment.
Second the amended
All right,
motion.
all in favor? Aye, okay, so the citizens petition goes on. Does anybody have any other business they want to put on the
Yes.
warrant, Paul?
Before we move from the citizens petition, Barbara had some, I thought, cogent suggestions for changed language. Has that been shared with?
She can, but I mean, it's a citizens petition. So
I know, it's totally up
locked
to
in.
you. Barbara St. Andre had some good suggestions for improving the language. I don't know if you've seen it, but I would,
No, I have not seen it.
I would ask you to consider it, because I think these make sense.
I guess the point, though, is, Chuck, we've got 100 and something people who signed
I was just gonna
a
say
petition
that.
saying what the language was
right.
going to be.
Right.
And I know there's some changes that are within the scope, but it seems, I mean,
Yeah, and we can amend it on town meeting.
yeah, I mean, I don't know if I'd be inclined to try to
They're really
amend anything.
clarifications.
I mean, yeah,
Yep.
so.
You certainly can't amend it tonight.
Yep, okay, great.
I've got 118 signatures, so they're all certified, but
And they read every word of this, and they don't want to change one of them.
they did.
Okay, very good.
I held them hostage at the door.
I knew there was a reason. I knew there was a reason they signed, Susan, so
Yeah, there you go.
thank you for at least coming clean. All right, Paul?
I am suggesting that the board put on an additional article, which would also be a recall article, but would be the recall article that the board with town council and consultation with various people put together in 2012 and 2013. This article provides the voters with a real opportunity to discuss recall as a policy issue rather than the defective citizen article. It had copies made of the article. It was Article 26 from the 2013 annual town meeting. It received a favorable recommendation from advisory, but it was not voted by the town. The point of this is to make sure that there are objective criteria for the recall of town officials. The problem with an article that doesn't have objective recall is that it allows for unknown motivations. And I would think that given everything that's going on nationwide and state by state, Sherborn is no place for hate or for vindictive actions or for revenge or anger or all those kinds of things, which an article that has no standards at all could allow to happen. So the point of what the board came up with in 2013 was to have objective, clear standards of when an official can be recalled and when not to be recalled. So again, the point is, if there are people who want recall and there are signatures on a piece of paper, let's give them a reasonable choice, a reasonable alternative that's lawful, not defective, and is objective.
What year was this, Paul?
2013.
Okay. Any discussion up here? I'll just made a motion, so we can,
Yeah, Jeff Rudin was on the advisory committee, and these two articles came up, and I found his argument very persuasive, that the town is small enough that I don't like either of these petitions. So I like the fact that Article 26 is drafted in 2013, has specific grounds for the recall, and it's not open-ended, but I just don't like the principle of a recall. This town is small enough that if people don't like what I'm doing, run against me. I think in a small town government, the idea of a recall, I just don't support it.
okay, so the discussion now is about whether to put the proposed alternative article on the warrant. I would support that, but for exactly the reasons you just said, Chuck. I do think it's a better alternative to, sort of an open-ended recall petition that doesn't have any grounds stated or could be abused pretty easily. But I also think, as you just voiced, that this is kind of an ugly business to be in a town as small as ours, and also really hard to get people to volunteer for town positions or to run for election. And I can tell you, it wouldn't make me feel good about running for election if I thought at a whim somebody could recall me or recall you or recall anybody. If there's a reason to do it, that's a little bit better. But as you said, I think a town our size, we can deal with things through the electoral process. We don't have to do special recall elections. I don't know. Do you have anything you
Could
want
I
to say
add-
on this?
I agree.
Could I add a few comments?
You can certainly comment.
Thank you. I just want to say, since this was first done in 2013, yes, there was another, at the last minute, another article was put on the town floor, again, to have two recall bylaws, one submitted by the residents and one submitted by the selectmen. Again, there's...
We're also residents, just so you know.
I'm sorry, what?
We are residents also.
I realize,
All right,
but
fine.
I'm just saying, a resident citizens petition
Yeah.
was presented as is now. As in 2013, apparently there's going to be another article for a recall. And all it did was, at town meeting floor, everyone said, well, there's two articles, it's very confusing, so there was no discussion, everything was done. I just want to also point out that since 2013, when the citizens first brought a petition together for this, 9 other towns, 7 have approved a recall bylaw, gone through the state, has been adopted. All of those 7 all have statement of the grounds for the recall. And sadly, I missed the date. It was October 12th, this month. Carlisle and Uxbridge both had their final hearings at the State House regarding this. They've already had one before the House, one before the Senate. And they were having their final one. And I want to say that Carlisle, again, containing the name of the officer sought to be recalled and the statement of the grounds for recall. And Uxbridge says the same thing. And I don't know if you still have it from the last time. I'd be more than happy to give you another list of all the towns in the state of Massachusetts that have a recall bylaw. And again, it's small towns. Here's a town with 1,309 people. Statement for the grounds for recall. Here's a town with 10,800 people. Statement of the recall. Carlisle, statement of the recall. Wilmington, statement of the recall. Nantucket, statement of the recall. There's only one other town that had the language that the Selectmen presented as their wording back in 2013, and that's the town of Framingham. And that limits it to 3 specific reasons, one being a felony. So, thank you.
If I could
Great.
say one thing.
Well, go ahead. Oh, no, I think actually Carol wanted to speak too. Do you want to?
Okay.
We went out to the audience. Let's go out and then
Yep.
come back up here.
I just wanted to say, in the spirit of Chuck's comments and your comments, Mike, that I think Mr. Mr. Durensis' comments about hate and revenge are out of order.
All right, Paul, you want to talk now, or?
Yeah, I want to say that in October, the municipal world was shocked with a court decision that awarded $2.9 million to a selectman who was subject to a recall, who alleged that the grounds stated were false. And after a trial, the court found that in the context of these recalls, there could be liability, and they awarded $2.9 million.
To a selectman?
What
To a
town, what
selectman.
town was that,
I'm in favor of the
please?
recall now, Paul. That's
Yeah,
a good idea.
this may change my vote.
Far away.
It was sitting
What was that, what was the town?
Chelmsford.
Thank you.
Well, that's interesting. I mean, I don't know that that has much to do with this either. I just, for me, it's just totally a function of we're a small, close community. And, I mean, in answer to Susan's comments, if all the other towns jumped off the Brooklyn Bridge, would you jump off the Brooklyn Bridge? It doesn't do anything for me that other towns passed what I think is a very flawed approach, but. All right, so, we didn't vote to put this on or not? Paul, you've made a motion,
I moved to put it on.
and Chuck, did you second that, or?
No, I did not.
All right, well, I'll second it. Do we have any more discussion up here? All right, hearing none, all in favor of putting it on? 1, 2, 3, all opposed? 1 opposed, okay. 3 to 1. And again, we'll figure out the orders.
We need to do that sooner rather than later because the
We gotta publish this.
advisory
Yeah.
is having a hearing on November 9th, and do we have a meeting before?
Oh, well, we can do it now. I would think we would want to leave the zoning and the EA articles towards the end, but,
Do we?
do we?
You don't want to just open with the zoning? I mean, that was the
Open with the
reason
zoning?
for the town meeting.
Okay, that's fine, too.
I think everything else is second to.
All right. Is that a motion? We've got
Yeah,
those
I would
as
move
one
to
and two.
open with the planning boards here. 2 articles.
So planning board 1 and 2? People okay
Yeah.
with that? And then what comes next? The fire chief?
Yeah.
Okay.
That seems to make sense.
And then then what, the citizens petition, and then the Article 26?
We usually
Article?
put citizens' articles at the end of the warrant.
All right, we'll make a motion.
How did I know that was coming?
It's just a practice.
I'll make that motion.
Go ahead, make a motion.
I move that we start with the 2 planning board articles.
Yeah.
Then the fire article is 3. Are you asking for the citizens petition to be after the selectmen's?
Paul's saying it should be 5th and that the one he proposed should be 4th. I'm kind of indifferent on how that works, but make your motion. I don't know if we need any input on this part,
I'll
Carol.
put the citizens petition 4th
Okay.
and selectmen's 5th, because they called it. I mean, theoretically, they could have called a second. Well, shouldn't start a discussion. Let's see if I get a second.
I'm just thinking if I'm Mary Wolf, I might want these 2 considered together so that I can compare and contrast them. I mean, they have
How do you do that?
different pieces, I don't know, just in the discussion, but then the vote.
Well, she could do that if they're in order together, whether they're 4 and 5 or 5 and 4.
Right, I think that's right where I was heading. So I'm kind of indifferent in the order. I don't like either of them.
I know, but you can't, I mean, that's
I'd like them to be
democracy.
10th and 11th.
Really? What are the other 5 things?
Yeah,
Come on, Chuck.
I'll draft them up now.
All right.
It's just been our practice consistently to put citizen articles at the end of the warrant. But
Want to make a friendly amendment? I already moved.
Okay, so Sean has moved in order for this of the 2 planning board articles, then the fire chief's article, then the citizens petition, then the Durensis alternative article. All right, so I'll second that. Sean. Any discussion?
I'll just say that
Thanks,
the
Chief.
order of the first three
Yeah.
was obvious, and I only did it for the order in which they came in, for the fourth and fifth. I prefer they be discussed together.
I think it's pretty much a guarantee, either order
They're
they're going
going
to
to
be
be,
discussed
the
together.
discussion's gonna be
Right.
together, so I'm not sure if there's a mechanism we can force that.
That's up to the moderator.
Right, that's what we said, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, agreed. So, I'm sorry, you seconded Sean's motion?
I did.
Great.
All right. Hearing no more thirds or fourths. All in favor of Sean's motion? All right, 3, all opposed, 1, 3-1. Okay, everybody wins and everybody loses. It's great.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Point of order, and I actually am not sure of the answer to this question, but technically, since you closed the warrant a while ago, do you need to vote tonight to open it to add these 2 articles? And
Did we
then
close the
vote
warrant?
again?
It closed itself on the 10th.
It automatically closed, so
We open and close.
So we can vote to open it and then close it? All right. So we're going to move to open it?
Second.
Second?
All in favor of opening it? Okay. All in favor of adding Paul's article? All right. And then now, I guess,
Fire chiefs.
and the fire chief's article. Oh, he was,
No, his
he
was
filed,
in.
he filed one.
His was
He
in.
filed, yeah, he filed.
We had an NOI on it, yep.
He had a placeholder in.
You gotta move to add the Board of Selectmen article, okay?
Yeah,
And then you gotta move to close it.
and we'll move to close.
Second?
All in favor? All right, great, good, thanks, Carol.
Thank you.
So could we get something to advisory by November 9th?
Of course.
Yeah, and
So when are we going to actually issue the warrant?
it's got to be a
Special
certain
calendar.
time ahead of the,
Calendar.
yeah, we got to do it by that,
Yeah, we still have time.
by the deadline. But no, but what you need is you need to draft the
We need to get everything to
the
Barbara.
fire chief article
Right, have her.
and get it
draft
to Barbara. And I don't know if you want to, I don't think you want to put an exact number in that article. That's just an authorization to purchase the command vehicle
Right.
for a sum not to exceed, and then find out what the number is. Or
I wouldn't
or to be
include-
be determined at
I
town
wouldn't include the
meeting.
specs in that article.
Yeah.
That truck could get bought by somebody else,
That's
and then
right.
it's a wasted
That's
article.
right, yeah,
He can put that in his presentation.
yeah. We all know
And you
what
don't want any
happens.
dollar figure in there either.
No, we can add,
Well,
they can make a motion with a dollar figure in it. Advisory will make its motion with a dollar figure, but they're gonna vet the whole thing first. And we know what it's like to try to vote a vehicle at town meetings, so.
So but my point is that we should be issuing a warrant before the 9th.
Yeah.
And when is our next meeting, and when are we going to have a warrant that we can actually sign?
You haven't picked the next meeting after tonight?
Well, hang on.
That's why I'm
We
trying to
haven't.
first figure out how much time do we need to have something to sign, because there's no sense for us reaching agreement on a time for a meeting and have nothing to sign. So how much time is needed?
I have to go get
Actually-
the- I'd have to go pull the calendar.
I'll tell you what, the advisory's having a budget guidance meeting on Wednesday, November 8th.
The 8th, right.
Can we meet that night just to vote, only for the purpose of voting the article?
Great idea.
Well,
Well,
No?
we need I need a hearing for the library too.
What's going on there?
It's an easement for the power company, so
We can grant that?
it's 5 minutes. We need to grant it.
Okay. But we can do that without any vote,
Don't we need a town meeting vote?
to grant an easement?
Yeah.
Did the municipal
No, it's-
reform
it's-
legislation change that?
No, I'm sorry. I don't think it's an easement.
Just a license?
Yeah, it's just for a trench, for underground wires, from a pole. It's basically like a pole.
We
We,
don't want an easement for that.
hold
We
on,
probably need another article.
hold on.
Well, we can do that in the spring. They can run their wires and then get their easement later.
If they're willing to do that.
That library's not gonna be open by Springtown meeting.
so do we pick the next meeting date?
No,
I'd like to meet,
The hearing was supposed to be,
we're talking about the 8th.
I'd like to meet the evening of the 8th if we can.
That works for me.
Works for me.
I mean, we can meet, you know, if they're gonna be in this room, we can meet downstairs in a room. We're just doing the voting of warrant.
The
I
warrant
think.
needs to be ready to be signed that night.
Yeah.
just a grant.
So start the meeting at 7 or 6:30?
Let's try 6:30 again, I guess.
Yeah,
Maybe we'll be done by 7.
Well, if advisory is starting at
Isn't the hearing on that?
7?
We can sit here for the half hour beforehand and then be done.
The advisory
then we
hearing?
need to meet before they start so that they have
All
something.
right, so
to
6:30.
consider.
No, this is just a grant
I thought
location.
advisory, oh, you're right. I thought advisory was at 8, but you're right, it's 7 o'clock, so.
Do we have to do
That's
this
their
now?
hearing night advisory, yeah, they're gonna hear that. Yeah,
I need to try and get that into the next.
The 8th.
Well, can we do it
I-
can we do it the next November one after that? So we
Yeah.
don't have too much, unless you think it's not gonna be controversial.
This is not gonna be controversial.
Okay, that's what we've said before.
No, I said that one was.
Okay, all right.
That was the exact. opposite.
Not that anybody's keeping score.
All right, so Diane, we're gonna put you through one of your typing drills that night. We're gonna have a warrant to vote. There's gonna be something on it that we want changed. You're gonna have to race down and retype it, and then we have to sign it, okay?
Sure.
So get psyched for that, Diane, okay?
I'm fast.
How long does she need to-
You're not gonna have the warrant articles until the night of the hearing?
This is the budget hearing. This is just a budget meeting for spring budget. It's not an advisory hearing.
Yeah, but
No, I think,
That's also the advisory
Yeah,
hearing?
It says the
Yeah.
advisory public hearing is November.
November 8th, yeah.
Oh, so they put that on the same night as the
They're
budget
calling that
meeting?
budget guidance meeting.
No, they're not having that budget guidance meeting. It's
Apparently
just-
not.
It's the advisory hearing,
Oh,
yeah.
all right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
We only
need
knew
to
about
meet
it because
before
David
the
sent
8th
that out.
then.
the
We
what?
need to meet
They
before the
need your
8th.
articles, you know, as soon
Yeah.
as possible.
I
Yeah.
thought that
I
Jeannie.
thought it had to be advertised before
I
their
thought
meeting.
Jeannie had to mail them on the
Yeah,
2nd.
yeah, what's,
2nd of November.
somebody's gotta go get that
You want me
calendar.
to go get it? I can
Yeah.
get
It's
it.
in my folder and I don't have it.
Jeannie's got the mailing already?
I think so.
It's downstairs, you're right.
The notice has to be mailed on or before November 7th.
Well, that's next Thursday, so.
So
I'm sorry, was that November 7th or 2nd?
She just said the 2nd.
All right, so you know what, Diane?
Just give me 1 minute so I can make a copy.
Yeah, I think we're gonna meet Monday, October 30th then.
That's pretty scary.
It's like 3 days.
Well, it's just gonna be posted for this warrant, that's it.
Just think of all the ghosts and
He said 30th, not 31st.
Paul always likes to get out early, get better candy that way.
October 30th, so that's next Monday, is that right?
All right, so this is the
Yeah.
calendar.
Am I gonna get that done? Tomorrow's Friday.
so we're gonna have a meeting October 30th to finalize the warrant.
Am I gonna be able to get Barbara to
Giving her
get
one
all
more
of that
day.
done in
You
one
You got
day?
it, I mean,
Right.
that's her, she's town council, she's gotta come through for us.
Can we start the meeting on the 30th at 7? I've got a
November
meeting in
1st.
Cambridge until 5 o'clock.
Sure.
All right, 7 o'clock on the 30th.
Why don't we make it
Can we meet
7:30
on the
so we
1st?
can,
Yeah.
why don't we do,
You
se-
three can meet on the 1st, but I can't.
Okay,
Why
that's
don't
a
we-
good reason.
why don't we do 7:30 so that Chuck doesn't have to kill himself?
So is that the
I
only
don't
thing
think
we're
you can
gonna,
go to that extreme, Paul, just for a half an hour, but okay, that's fine.
is that the only thing we're gonna do that night, is do the warrant?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Paul. Jesus Christ. 1, 2,
Okay, so do we have another meeting date after that?
4.
The 16th of November?
What
Well,
about
if-
Sean?
If the advisory committee is having a hearing on the 8th, I think we
We
should
should
schedule
notice
a
it,
meeting
we should absolutely notice
for
it.
the 8th.
Yeah, we can notice a
Then
meeting.
do you mind if Jeannie advertises that as the hearing for the Eversource thing so we can knock that
Are
out?
we gonna meet at 6:30 on the 8th?
Yeah.
I
That's
assume
what we
advisory
talked
starts at
about.
7.
Okay.
And we'll do it before advisory? You'll do your thing before advisory meets at 7?
Yeah. How long does she need to post that? Do
I don't
anyone
know.
know?
48
Is it
hours.
I
14
thought it was
days?
10 days.
You gotta advertise it.
For the grant location?
Yeah. She needs to advertise it, right?
She does, I don't think she does have to. She has to, advertise it in the paper?
'Cause it's
Yeah, but you don't have to
public
send notices out or anything like that,
You don't?
you know? I think the statute actually says you don't,
I just wanna make sure we give her enough
I'm
time.
not sure you have to formally have a hearing, but do you know, Paul?
For a grant of location,
Yeah,
you need to have, it's a petition, you need to have a hearing.
but I don't know if you have to have an advertised hearing. Let me just
Okay.
pull this out.
I don't even have to.
It's the only point to do it and then find out it's 2 days too soon.
October 30th. I don't think I'm gonna meet the post.
All right, okay,
Tomorrow.
so,
So if it's 2 weeks, that means we can't do that before the 9th or the 10th.
Yeah, so that's right.
What's the rush on the granted location?
Winter's coming. We're trying to get the pole replaced, we're trying to get the transformer in, they
Well,
wanna kick
let's
off
set
work.
another meeting, then it'll be the following week.
I mean, we don't need to do a meeting just for it, I just wanted to make sure I caught a meeting.
Let's do November 16th then for a meeting.
Yeah, that works for me.
So we're gonna do the 8th at advisory, and then the 16th,
Yes.
correct? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
And are you gonna be bringing turkey? And stuffing?
You're always trying to get me to cook for you, it ain't gonna happen.
So is this a line that's already there, Sean?
Not underground, no.
Okay. Yeah, so then you do have to advertise.
I mean, well.
If you were just
there's-
adding- if
There's
you
a
were just
line
add-
here underground, and they're gonna move it to here,
Yeah,
retrench it.
so you have to have a hearing then.
and the hearing needs to be posted for how long?
So it has to be mailed 7 days in advance.
The 8th would
To
work,
to
but
the
it's
owners
not-
of all the
that's
real
pretty
estate,
tight.
to the owners of all the real estate along the way, let's figure out who that is.
The church,
The church, and the town,
Yeah,
okay, and the community center.
So do you want to do it on the
The
8th?
town owns that,
If it's only 7 days, we can do it on the 8th?
as long as it gets mailed out tomorrow. Or no, next week, you're right.
You talk about for Sean?
November 8th, okay, so Sean, yeah, November 8th, we'll do that we're doing, meeting at 6:30, is that right?
I mean, she has to put the notices out tomorrow.
No.
No, the
It's
8th,
1 week.
November 1st.
Sorry, you're right.
Okay, all right. We are in disarray without David being around and with all the other stuff. Diane's been fighting off problems and everybody's doing a great job, but we really need our big guy back, right?
Mm-hmm, we certainly do.
Well, David's on the mend,
Yes.
He is.
and he's doing better every day. So,
Are we gonna continue with the November 16th meeting too, or no? We're just gonna?
Yeah,
go-
let's keep it on. We're gonna have a bunch of stuff we need to do.
Right.
particularly with a town meeting coming up.
Yeah.
Because
good
we're
idea.
probably not gonna meet on Thanksgiving Day,
So that's gonna be November 16th, did we say 6:30 again, is that it?
Yes,
We're probably not gonna meet on Thanksgiving Day, Paul? Yeah, I think,
probably. The way you're going,
I
you're
think that's
picking
a-
every Thursday now.
I think that's a fair bet.
And Thanksgiving's usually on Thursday, so that's the next week.
All right. Great, good, we just got something done. All right, consideration of an appointment, Michael Goldstein, for a term to expire June 15, 2019, to the Public Safety Committee.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
With just expiring June 15, 2019.
Is it, he's an assessor, right?
Yes.
He's still eligible to be on another committee if he's an assessor?
Well, the board has a long-term policy of not loading up individuals with so many multiple positions. The idea is to
Right.
try and get
Well,
as many.
that's what I was asking about that,
different
but
people.
it's not a law that you can't
No,
do it.
It's
Okay,
not a law, it's just a policy.
fine. All in favor? Mike Goldstein, okay. Addie Mangino. Villages at Sherborn. Thank you for patience. This is what you're here to talk about, or are we talking about it and you're just here to listen?
I think it's just that you're requesting comments
That's what I meant.
November 10th, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I meant. So you don't have comments now, you just wanted to hear what we were gonna talk about? Okay. And I can't say that I know whether we have comments either, because typically that's something that David would have pulled together, and has somebody put out a request to the different boards to do that? Okay. All right, so that should be coming in. Does anybody up here have any initial thoughts on that development?
Well, I was just told it's not at 84, or is it at 84? Which project is this now?
This is a different project, this one is.
This is 84.
This is the multifamily building, right? This is the one that would be a straight 40B, at least at this point,
Straightforward and all rental.
and all rental, yeah. And how many units, Gino? There's 88 units being proposed, okay.
Well, I saw a plan, and it was concerning to me for two reasons. and I'll show everybody what my concerns were. The first concern was that all the development on this big parcel, it's all crammed into one corner. And then when you look at what's proposed, it's essentially one long building. And then when you look at it from an aerial point of view, it's got building after building after building all pressed together in something that doesn't have the feel of Sherborn, because it's all so compressed together. And so my question, only from the paper, is can't this be dispersed a little bit so some places you can actually have a tree in this part of the project, rather than having this monolithic building that's probably going to end up being the longest building in the town? Seems a little intimidating.
Design is definitely a concern of this building. The siting, the location is driven in large part by the wetlands in slope to the rear of the property. So it kind of forces it to be in that location where it's flat. But it is, the front L shape of it is, I think, about 70 or 80 feet off the road. And then the back L, the long part of the L, is further back than that. I do think this, we don't have any details yet, but I do think there's some opportunity for design that will soften it quite a bit, but that remains to be seen.
And there's a lot of parking, it's
of
right on the front, the whole front of this is loaded with parking.
Especially under the power lines.
This is the easement,
The lot under the
Power
power
lines.
lines.
Right,
which is what restricts his use of
yeah.
the property as well.
So some of that parking is under the power lines? Does the power company let you put parking under your power lines?
Yes.
This is also below the road. And one of those pictures that shows the,
And it is all, I mean, it's not multiple buildings, it's gonna have elevators servicing the entire structure, so, in a two-dimensional drawing, it's not, I mean, there are design elements that beg to be reviewed, but as far as, it is an L-shaped building, and it is an apartment building with handicap access and elevators.
And as apartments, every unit counts for the SHI calculation? Yeah. Sean and Gino and Addie and I were all there for the site visit. The other part of the site is, there's a substantial hill back behind, that you can see from the elevation here. And this is fairly steep, this is very steep. So, as Gino pointed out, a lot of it is site constraints.
it's also heavily wooded, and he's really not affecting the wood line behind the field. So, the counter argument to one big building, and I'm not making it, but the counter to it is more open space. Behind that building will be nearly untouched. There's not much cut and fill in there, and then the woods line remains the same.
And I assume one reason for the big building is it's just easier to construct, is that right?
It's actually, that, and it's a pretty tight lot when you divide up the distance from your well field. It's hard to see on this small, when it was a large. You know, you have the well field, you have the sewer treatment plant, and then, of course, the N-Star easement.
Right.
Power lines, there's not a lot of space there.
Yeah, I mean, but you could create two buildings that are, apart from each other if it was cost effective to
I
construct it that way.
suppose, and maybe
There's
that's
enough-
something we could push for, but.
Yeah, there's enough space to move the parts around on this page if you can do it. And my understanding from some prior discussions is it's just not desirable for a developer because it's more expensive to construct it that way. And this is a rental project. I mean, they've done something with, they've articulated the roof line, which at least is a start maybe, but yeah, it's gonna be a big, a big massing in an area that we haven't really seen in town for the most part. I mean, we've got some large barns and things, but that's not quite the same thing.
It just has an un-Sherburne-like feel. If there's some way to make it a little more Sherburne-y.
Well, it's hard, it is kind of hard to tell on a black and white elevation sketch, like you said, Paul. But, yeah. I mean, I think the effort to make it more Sherburne-y was the varied roof lines and angles on that drawing. I suspect that was not
Right.
the preference of the builder to build something that's other than a box. So they made a box and then they disguised it with, with different size roofs and different style of roofs and, some
Different
sections
levels.
with more of a dormer type look.
Yep.
It's certainly more Sherborn than the building down the street from it at the Framingham line.
Which one is that one?
I can't,
Sherburne Meadows.
Meadows,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
which is a 3-story apartment building,
Right.
with basement level.
Right.
There's certainly, that doesn't have as long a profile from the street,
That's right.
and it's a more commercial zone, but
I think there's things that can be done to, particularly the facade of the L that faces Queen Street, and then the long L, the grade rises from the street. I think there's opportunity with the stone walls and trees, and then the parking lot, while it is a large parking lot, it does have islands separating the rows.
Mhm.
There's opportunity for trees there as well that will at least soften the look, if not, completely. But there's a lot of design work is needed going forward on this.
And those kinds of things are things that Mass Housing lets you put in the letters, but they don't really care about them, and they're really just looking at the suitability of the site.
Correct.
Yeah.
But interestingly, Mass Housing Partnership had their own architect designer on the sidewalk.
Huh.
I'm not sure what she's going to do, but she was at least present.
All right, well, so somebody's familiar with it, that's good. All right, so we don't have to do these comments tonight, but we at least can think about authorizing David and Diane to pull the comment letter together based on input from Gino and from the discussion tonight, and from input from the fire chief, the police chief, the CM&D director, and whoever else has been surveyed on this, right? Okay? Now, consideration of potential for a tie-in to the Natick water supply. So this is an item that's on, largely based on a discussion Chuck and I have had, but also, some other discussions that have taken place about whether this is a location where Natick would be willing to supply water in light of General Chemical and in light of, just as Sean pointed out, the well separation distances, which do constrain the ability to do some things on this site that might actually even avoid having to have all the housing up front, for example. The thought was maybe to have the Board of Selectmen authorize itself to write a letter, or authorize the town administrator to write a letter requesting a meeting between a representative of the Sherborn Board of Selectmen and somebody from Natick to see if there's a way to make those arrangements.
They have said no.
Well,
Natick has.
they were not asked. They said no without being asked. So I think we're going to ask them and then see what they say. That would be my preference anyway.
But the way they couched the letter, was they said that they could not, because the statute that creates their water department limits them only to service within the town of Natick. So even if they wanted to, they could not.
Well, that's what they said, Paul, but we have other information that suggests that that's not entirely accurate.
That was limited to a special act of the legislature, as I understand it, for some wells located near Elm Bank that are in Dover.
Right, and that's not their entire water supply?
Right. That's 2 of 10 or 11 wells, right?
Exactly.
They also have an interest in this because they don't want their water to be drawn, to General Chemical to be drawn towards their well either. And we're concerned that if you draw down a well on this property, you do end up potentially moving the plume in a direction that would could affect Sherborn more and could affect Natick more. So,
And our consultant and DEP both acknowledged that that could happen. Right here.
Right.
No geologist is gonna say it won't happen, but they're not really gonna say it will happen. So there's a risk.
Yeah, and I think these intermunicipal agreements are between the boards of selectmen. I think sitting down and meeting with them, the Natick Board of Health has been involved in General Chemical. I'm not sure how active the Natick Board of Selectmen has been, but it's a real issue. I think
Well, their
sitting
town-
down and talking with them is
Their
important.
town manager was the one that drafted the letter, correct? When they
Which letter?
first got on board, about a year ago.
On General Chemical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they
Yeah, so presumably,
certainly were paying attention once they
Right.
realized.
do you need a formal motion, Mike, or?
I think we would, yeah. I mean, it looks like we've got some disagreement on the board. I think we would want to make sure that whoever's speaking or writing is authorized to do that and isn't acting as a free agent, because we seem to have already had some free agent conversations.
Who do you think should be that person?
Probably Chuck or me, and Chuck has maybe more time than me, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm happy to meet with them. I mean, I think the letter should come from the board
Yeah.
requesting a meeting to discuss an intermunicipal agreement.
And then just see what the response is, and
Right.
and either one or two of us go over and
Right.
have a meeting if that's possible.
Yes.
I mean, it could be you if you want to do it. I mean, that's, you know a lot
Well, I
about
might be
water.
going in a different capacity. I mean,
Yeah, that's,
I-
in which case, we would only be one of us.
Right.
yeah.
All right, so, do you want to formulate a motion, Chuck?
Yeah, I'd move that the board authorize the draft of a letter to the Natick Board of Selectmen requesting a meeting to discuss an intermunicipal agreement for water for the Coolidge Street projects.
I'll second it.
Okay, any further discussion? Paul, you had some thoughts?
Well, just, I'm going to vote no, A, because they've already taken a position, but B, we don't have in place the legal structure to deal with having a public water supply. And so we're kind of putting the cart before the horse. Bringing a public water supply, you're creating the potential for other demands upon that water beyond what we are talking about today. There's the old cliche about unintended consequences. So I don't see that we're organized yet. We haven't created a water district. How far does the water go? So it goes to this development, but then what stops it from going someplace else where we don't want it to go?
So I guess I would respond to that, Paul, by saying we're authorizing an exploratory conversation. We're not authorizing an agreement. There'd still be an agreement that came to the town. I hadn't even considered that we would be doing this as a way to create a public water supply or district. I was looking at this as an agreement with Natick to serve a development that's in our town, just the same way Framingham already serves a development in our town because it happens to be on the border of Framingham, have part of it in Framingham. That's, in this case, it's protective of Sherborn to do that. If the concern is that having done that, somebody could sue Natick and get Natick to supply them with water over the objection of the Sherborn Board of Selectmen, I don't know why that couldn't happen now. I mean, if your concern is it could happen then you should be concerned it could happen already.
It can't happen now,
Why's that?
because there's no public water supply of this nature in Sherborn.
Right, but we wouldn't be talking about necessarily creating a public water supply. At least I wouldn't. That's not what I'm thinking about doing.
This
Yeah,
is a
it's-
public water supply. The Natick water is a public water supply.
Right, but it's not our water supply. It's not our public water supply.
In the same way that the Framingham water going to, is it Sweet Meadow, is that the name of the?
Yeah, I think so.
Meadows.
Sherborn Meadows.
Sherburne Meadow, sorry. Yeah, sorry, Sweet Meadow is the
The farm.
green farm.
Yeah, but
The
Framingham,
concept, by the way, is that it would be a private agreement with Trask Development, 2-inch water line serving his proposal. There would be a single bill, if you may, sent to him to pay for native water. would not be some, you know, an open type.
It's not a Sherborn Public Water District.
Not sure, it would not at all be, that's the concept anyway that's been discussed.
In our
Is that a
agreement,
2-inch water line?
Yes, and he would have a storage tank on the property that, so the water would run 24 hours a day. He would have the capacity to feed the water to the units.
And the fire hydrants?
And fire hydrants.
and our agreement would presumably be an agreement to let Natick run its pipes under our roads, right? Isn't that
Yes.
part of it?
Yes. And then kind of on the side is that in the event general chemical, and this may help avoid any general chemical contamination, but if it did impact the properties on Meadowbrook or in between, that then maybe the unit will, and that could even be a future unit, but that it would provide an option if their wells were to become contaminated.
If there was enough supply and if Trask was willing to make it available, I guess, right?
Right, it would be up to him basically.
Because particularly if you've got a 2-inch line, you've got some constraints on how much more you can run in at any time. Addie, yeah.
Just that it's, basically the request is to ask Natick to fill his wells with water from Natick instead of filling his wells with water from Sherborn's ground. He still has, it's a public water supply, managed and oversight by DEP, and as far as in conversation, it's been explained to us that he would still have to test the water, even though it's being tested on Natick's end. He has to treat the water as if it was either the same process for him, even if it's coming from Sherborn's ground or if it's coming from Natick, that he has to test the water, he has to monitor it, he has to.
That's a different public water supply issue, though. That's the public water supply in the concept of DEP and regulating the quality of water if it's used by more than 25 people. Whereas I think what Paul's concerned about is a structural concern that if we get water from another town, we've effectively created a public water district. I don't see it that way, but, you know, that's something we could certainly, would probably have to talk more about.
I would add to that, you mentioned Framingham. Framingham is authorized to provide water to other communities outside the limits of Framingham, but Natick is not. And Framingham is organized in a way that Natick is not. And the addition of water to that one facility in Sherborn was sufficiently removed from most of Sherborn that it wasn't considered to be the same kind of threat that could arise from an unwanted development. I'm not talking about housing development, I'm talking about any kind of development that needs water. If they are able to get a foothold to the kind of water that Natick can supply, you might have a lot of undesirable possibilities facing the town that I don't think we've thought through enough on our end to just embrace going after Natick. But I think Framingham is much more prepared for that and would be a much better partner with that because they've dealt with these kinds of issues where Natick hasn't.
You'd have to run a pipe a mile down Kendall Street, though.
I'm talking legal issues. I'm not talking housing policy, I'm not talking environmental issues, I'm not talking financial issues.
I would say when there's a will, there's a way, Paul. That's what I would say on this. You know, I mean, we've got a good legislator in the legislature. We've got, you know, the people have done all kinds of things with setting up water supply arrangements.
Yeah, but it hasn't been done here.
Hasn't been done in our town.
It hasn't been done in Sherborn, and it hasn't been done for this particular proposal. That's why I'm saying that the receiving side hasn't done its legal homework, which is us, and the provider side hasn't done its legal homework. So from a legal point of view, we're both in a unprepared state. That's was my
So if we're
concern.
gonna explore Natick, maybe we should explore Natick and Framingham. Framingham, you'd actually be buying MWRA water, just be coming off of their facility, right?
Yeah, I think I'd rather not
I mean,
start that. I'd
quality
rather
water.
not start that process of, you know. running the MWRA into Sherborn. That, I think that does get us potentially into all kinds of issues with becoming a member community and everything else. I don't think, I don't think the town of Natick selling water to a private developer and asking us to let them run pipes under our roads is going to be the same order of issue. But, I don't know.
My point is, we haven't thought this thing through yet. That's why
I'm in favor of finding a way to not pull groundwater out of that property.
Mm-hmm.
So I was explaining why I was voting no. We should vote on it.
We should vote
Looks
now.
like
Yeah.
it's going to be 3-1. I'm just explaining to the voters why on this I'm voting no. It's just technical, legal stuff from my being a town council, that's all.
When they recall all of us, none of us will have to worry about this.
You want to amend, should his motion be amended to also authorize him to meet? Because your motion was to draft a letter, and I think.
Good point.
So draft a letter and
Should have
then,
the authorization to have a meeting.
yeah, either authorize Chuck or just authorize someone, a representative of the board to meet.
Sure.
Yeah, and I'm happy to do it.
Okay. All in favor? All opposed? You almost put your hand up during.
Yeah, we almost had
I'm
it.
so used to.
We almost had it.
I think it's 3.5 to a half.
That was close. That was really close. I thought we had you.
Most of our votes are unanimous. I'm used to
Sounded
it.
so good.
Okay, so, acceptance of a gift from Middlesex Savings Bank. This is nice. So Middlesex Savings,
Pile of Cindy,
is that what that is?
No.
Maybe that's what that is. I wonder what that is, actually.
Why is that?
All right, so it looks like
Someone should read that.
they didn't do this, Diane, this is not, they're not giving us to this in nickels or anything, right? This is like.
I don't think so.
Okay.
I just think-
No, this is something you don't see every day, which is a local business is giving the town some money, which is very nice. It's money for recreation purpose, as I understand it. And under state law, we need to vote to authorize the acceptance of a gift in order for that gift to come into the town's treasury.
That's not quite right.
Okay, you
Anybody
correct
can
me.
accept the gift in the town, any town official can accept the gift. Only we can authorize it being used
Gotcha,
for
okay.
the purpose of the gift.
The recreation.
Yes, so in order to make that an effective motion, we need to figure out what the,
Yeah, I'm trying to find the page where Diane put this. Here we go.
I would move to accept the gift of $100 from Middlesex Savings Bank in support of the Recreation Commission.
Right, and the explanation on here is that Dave Goldberg, the Recreation Commissioner, received a letter from Middlesex Savings Bank to apply for a new scoreboard as part of a grant program. And the Recreation Commission applied, they were not chosen this year, but received a letter with a $100 donation to the town, which was very generous of Middlesex Savings Bank. And
I second Chuck's motion.
so moved and seconded.
Discussion.
Discussion, Sean.
I'd like to direct that it be put into the recreation revolving fund and not the general fund. If that's legal.
Only if the revolving fund is only used for,
Recreation.
Yeah, we have a specialized recreation
We definitely do.
fund. We've done a lot of brain damage on that
And
fund.
it's traceable directly to what their intent was.
Yeah, that's a good point.
it just says to support the organization, so yeah, that's fine. Because the revolving fund is to support recreation.
Yep, okay, good. So Sean's amendment to the proposed motion is to have it deposited in the recreation revolving fund. All in favor? Great, good fix. Let's see, 2 sets of draft minutes.
Move approval.
Move approval. Were your changes made, Paul?
Yes. definitely.
Yes, we went into executive session on both of them with no motion and no votes.
How's
So-
how's that possible?
So we
took
fixed it.
votes. Okay, yeah. We wouldn't have done that. We definitely took votes,
So
so,
now there's actual motions and.
okay.
See,
Yeah,
the
there's one on the
original had-
21st, but not the 27th.
I did both.
Good catch on that.
Yeah.
What happened, Diane? Just kind
I
of,
don't
we
know.
ran out of ink?
Let me see.
You're right, there's nothing on the 27th.
I don't
so-
have a comeback
But
to
the
that.
27th
That's
wasn't
fine.
fixed?
I'm not picking on you because
Right here.
you're doing
Yeah, there
yeoman's
it is.
work.
There it is,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's here.
Yeah,
No,
it's in both
here.
of them.
It's in both of them.
So we got it? Okay, good.
Yes, we do.
All right, so all in favor?
I didn't run out of ink.
Would somebody move to approve, right? So all in
So
favor?
moved.
Aye.
So
No,
moved.
Paul did it.
Yeah, I move to approve.
Okay, I just want to get out of here, so.
I was just trying to explain the amendment, the change.
All right, do we have anything else? Remind me again, our next meeting is
Wait a minute.
The 8th
November?
at 6:30.
October
October
30th
30th.
at 6:30
Yeah.
to sign the warrant only. And
And-
again, November 8th at the advisory hearing at 6:30, and then that's to discuss also the easement, is that what we're talking about?
October
that's-
30th
He's
is,
gonna try and schedule the easement, not the
Okay.
easement.
At 6:30, and then we're meeting again on
Location.
November 16th.
October 30th is 7:30,
Oh, it's 7:30?
7:30.
Oh. good
What's
to know.
7:30?
October 30th.
October 30th. I'm in Cambridge until 5,
Okay.
so I may still be late.
I mean, yeah.
Okay, and then November 16th is the other one, right?
November 16th at 6:30, yep.
Got it, okay, good. Great, thanks, everybody. We have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?